Hey y'all, so we are here to talk about the latest episode of The Real Housewives of Atlanta. I didn't look it up this time, so I don't know what. Oh, hold on, it's right here. Season 15, episode 13. Boom. I really enjoyed this episode. I had a great time watching it. I will say though, like, there was a lot of stuff at the beginning that I just didn't necessarily care about. But the episode was good. I had a good time. I saw that it was trending, but Twitter was giving that thing yesterday where like it kept showing the same tweets over and over and over again. They were funny, but I wasn't getting any new tea. But I was having a good time. So let's just jump right into it. I got a lot of notes. We start off the episode. We are back with the whole Sonya and her sister storyline thing. Y'all know I really like her sister. I was surprised to learn that she was a Gemini because I don't really care for those. I'll say Gemini men, but yeah, that didn't change anything. Though. I really like her, and they were just having a conversation about how their whole dynamic has changed. Key thing here is Sonya feels emotional because she's like, her sister had always been around to support her. She's there for everything, and she didn't get to stay for the mommy nation thing. She's like, even if you were gonna sit backstage and not be dressed, just being there would have been great. And her sister's like, cool, bet, but I have a life, I got kids, I got a man, and this ain't what it used to be. You know what I'm saying? But I'm still your sister. We good. Let's, boom. They're also decorating the Christmas tree and like doing the presents under the tree. So that part was fun because Christmas is my favorite holiday. But that's pretty much it on that. We finally get the return of Cynthia. I really love the like montage that they did for her return. She looked amazing. I was pretty much gagging because I'm like, she got a confessional right off the bat, so I love that. And she's just like, now what else is going on?
Surprise! I'm back. Now what else is going on?
And that's famous from when she got into it with Nene at the reunion. I believe that's when I remember it from. I could be wrong, but I like that moment. I enjoyed it. She said it with Kandi. I didn't see a lot about this, but I'm gonna talk about it. I mean, I didn't expect much from Cynthia because from my knowledge, she's not like back on the show, and she said that on Speak on It last night. She was on Speak on It with Kandi. She's not like technically back on the show. Definitely not as a housewife, obviously, and she's not really a friend either. She's just like there, and she kind of works something out with production is how she explained it. So I'm saying that to say, like, I didn't really expect her, even before I learned that information. I guess I wasn't expecting to get any tea about her divorce. I kind of was surprised that they talked about it, to be honest. I was just excited to see her. Her energy is just great. Like, her energy was just making the episode so fun. But yeah, I mean, we did get the tidbit about her divorce. I like that. I mean, you can tell that her and Kandi have a genuine friendship. And so, they had a genuine exchange where Kandi was like, well, I know you don't really want to get into it. And she's like, I really don't. But she touched on the divorce a little bit. She hasn't said anything different than what she's already said, if you've kind of kept up with it. Because when it was announced, she was doing a lot of interviews and they were asking her about it a lot. And Cynthia's tea, like, she's very much so kind of like a positive girl. She's just like, it didn't work out. It is what it is, girl. I'm going to keep it moving. And I like, that she talked about, I'm an older lady now. And, I'm just trying to do my thing. I'm trying to live my life. It's my second divorce. It is what it is. So I like that. I like that she's back at Lake Bailey. I would love to see Lake Bailey. I would love to see an event at Lake Bailey, which is what the girls were saying on Twitter a lot. We need a Bailey queue. So I think that would be fun. So I hope that she comes back in a more official capacity, whether it be friend or housewife or whatever, if that's the lane that it's going in. They also talked about the whole Drew thing. Kandi highlighted that, she misses her, which felt genuine as well. Like, it didn't feel like, girl, I miss you as a friend. It felt like, girl, I need you back on the show because they tripping, which was fun to see. And, she told her about the whole Drew thing and the issue. And she basically had to break it down because while Cynthia was there during the whole, like, Bolo and like LATOYA thing there, as in like on the premises, she was asleep, so she missed it. And Kandi had to break it down to her and just tell her what was going on with that. So it was fun. She played neutral again. Cynthia's Bob. Like, how Cynthia gets down. It was just fun to have her around. So boom. I also like that they were at Blaze. Like, that's just Kandi being a businesswoman. Like, take these opportunities. I'm speaking to Sheree. Take these opportunities to promote your business, right? Like, we've been talking about Blaze so much, and then also this is my business. So like, we're gonna film a scene. Sure, let's go eat at Blaze. Let's show off the food a little bit. Let's show off the ambiance. businesswoman. So yeah. Hey Sheree. We're at Kenya's house, and I've been thinking about this until today. Like, Brooklyn is just so cute, and it's like they threw it at us in every capacity. Like, we're getting scenes, we're getting confessionals, like we're seeing her interact with her baby cousin. She's like, I'm a big sister now. And they even did the flashback where she was like being jealous of the baby, and she's like, he's cute but I'm cute too. Like, and she is just so cute. Like, I mean, I could talk about that for days. I tweeted about it as well. But I mean, the key thing here is that she's a baby, so she wants a little sibling. I don't know how serious it is, kids be saying things. But also, Kenya's like, I do want a younger sibling for Brooklyn. And we talked about this before because she mentioned it before. She's thinking about using her embryos that she has with Mark to have more kids. I didn't have a big opinion on it then. I still don't, because I don't think that that's really my business. I'm not a woman, and I don't know what it's like having kids and all of that. But I definitely understand her wanting to have more kids, and I would love for her to be able to have more kids. I guess personally, if she's able to, if any world this can exist, if she's able to eliminate the drama that is Mark Daly, then I will go ahead and do it, girl. Like, you got the embryos. Like, go have some more kids. Get you a surrogate and, use the embryos or however it works. Do your big one. But, only if she's able to eliminate the drama with Mark. But, I mean, I also feel like she would have to wait until the divorce is final, and who knows when that's going to happen. But luckily, Brooklyn's still young. So I would love for her to be able to do that. Or whatever she's going to do to be able to have another child, I would love for her to be able to do it. So that's my 2 cents on that. We then get to Drew and Ralph, and I feel like I like me some Drew. I do. I like Drew, even though she's got some weird stuff going on, aka lying. But I think I usually spend my Drew and Ralph scenes analyzing Ralph. And the biggest thing, like, when it started, she kind of opened up the conversation, like, asking him, like, well, no, she mentioned, she's like, oh, I asked Ralph what happened in Vegas, and he said he was just working or whatever. And I'm like, I was already turned off by that, because they get to their scene for whatever reason, which we didn't get context for. They're changing her closet around or something like that or whatever. And Ralph comes up. Ralph seems very just like not tapped in. He seems extremely just like over it, not trying to like it feels like Ralph knew he had to be on his best behavior this season after he said he should have got his wife a Lunchable last season. So it feels like he wanted to like show good face, but he's also just not feeling it. So he's just kind of very lackluster, and he's having a conversation kind of like this. But the most interesting part was he asks about cousin Courtney on the trip, and Drew was like, well, we need to differentiate now. Like, I don't know if I'm going to really be referring to her as cousin Courtney, and I'm just going to get to know her as Courtney because she just been on some weird stuff. And I guess she tried to put it off as she didn't stick up for you being Ralph, when Marlo was talking about her. But I think it's also, not even think, we know, it's also like the whole like collusion thing that was happening with Marlo, Sheree, and Sonya and Courtney. So, Courtney's just, I guess Drew's catching on that Courtney's weird, even though we knew Courtney was weird, but Drew is also weird. But if I had to go between Drew and Courtney, I'm going to go with Drew. But then if I had to go with Drew and anybody else, I'm going to go with anybody else besides Courtney. So, yeah. Another thing was, though, like, she was talking about this whole thing with Kandi. Like, I know that there's a lot of backlash like about Kandi, and they're like, well, why is she talking about it so much? And I've already said, like, she's talking about it so much because she's being called a liar, and she's making that very clear too. So anybody missing that point is choosing to miss that point. We're not going to belabor it, but I think we also need to recognize that Drew is just as heavy on this point as Kandi is. And every time she has this conversation with somebody, including Ralph, they're just like, well, I don't know what the big deal is. Like, if you kissed her, you kissed her. And she kind of agrees. She's like, yeah. So if that's the thing and you don't understand why it's such a big deal, then you will kind of pass it off and be like, well, maybe I did kiss her, maybe I didn't, or whatever. Like, you just wouldn't be talking about it as much. So my point is, like, she's defending her point just as much as Kandi is defending hers, for starters. Second of all, I noted, basically Ralph was asking, like, well, where is this even coming from? And Drew is just like, well, it started off in Portugal because, what did she say? I wrote it down. She said, these are her words. She said, out of nowhere, Kandi brought it up. And that's not how it happened. And y'all should know from watching these reviews, I hate a mischaracterization of some information because that's not how it occurred at all. So we can tell how the game of telephone goes on at their house. But that bothered me. And then, she's just like giving the whole story again about how she feels like Kandi's trying to produce it, and we'll get into that a little bit more later when Sheree delivers that bone. We're then taking over to Marlo, and I will say I like the episodes where the timing is good. I've said this before. So we've touched a lot of the housewives already, and we've seen what they're doing and what they're talking about. Again, I probably don't necessarily care as much, but we've done it. So I like that type of editing and, stuff for the show. So points for that. Speaking of, we get to Marlo and she's talking about Skylee. Then we get to Sheree and Kandi. This is where things start to get a little bit more interesting for me. And I'm just like, Sheree carried that bone. And I like that. Like, I noted that I like that Sheree was working on being the word that we've started using now, thanks to Carlos King, the anchor of the cast, and like bringing the girls together and figuring things out and kumbayaing, but she's not very good at that. So she's back to, I guess, her bone carrying, because I haven't really seen her give that this season. So it excited me to see her do it, because that felt like a genuine conversation. That feels genuinely like what Sheree gives when she's having a conversation. And it felt like her and Kandi had gotten back to good terms. I like that they both did confessionals like, we're good right now, like giving us the dynamic update. And then they sit down and have what looks to be a genuine kiki. Like, hey girl, what's going on? So I really enjoyed just the dynamic of that overall. And then especially Sheree just being like, well, yeah, girl, like Drew said that you were trying to produce a moment. And it hadn't clicked to me that Kandi hadn't been delivered that information yet. So to see her react and get pissed off about it, I'm like, rightfully so. And it is weird. I've seen a lot of people making parallels to, I think it was season 9, the whole Phaedra and Portia thing about the dungeon. And people are like, it's giving that esque, like it's giving a little bit of that sensation. And I can agree with that. Y'all ate that up because I hadn't considered it. I can definitely agree that it's giving those weird vibes. It's not the same thing. I'm not saying that. She's not making like I don't need to defend myself because this isn't my point. I'm just saying I agree with other people's points. But she's not like, we're not saying the allegations are the same. We're just saying it's giving that same type of vibe where you're kind of throwing something out there and acting like Kandi is trying to make something happen and it centers around like a sexual nature, and it's that type of thing. So, but whatever, they said it, they said what they said. I agree with what I agree with. It is kind of given that. I don't think that Drew is doing, I would hope that Drew is not doing it intentionally, but I think that she did it, like she did it a lot this episode. I want to, off the top of my head, I feel like there were 3 instances where she's giving these like weird like nudges, like, you know what I'm saying, about Kandi and weird vibes, and kind of trying to paint her out to be a weird piece of girl. So I didn't enjoy that. I also felt like it was whack for Drew to go to Sheree and just kind of be like, well, even though this happened last episode, if I'm in a movie, then fine. If I'm not, then I'm not. Like, I got plenty of movie roles that I can do. And I'm just like, where? But okay. But I thought that was whack. Like, I don't know. Her approach to it and like her response to Kandi is it's weird to me. It's kind of whack to me for something that allegedly just doesn't matter. Kandi's rightfully so upset about the information that she's gotten from Sheree. Sheree doesn't really weigh in on her position, which is fine because she said several times in the confessional that Drew was a liar, so it's fine. But this makes me excited to see Kandi's event at the end of the day. And Kandi's telling her about the event. It sounds fun. We obviously all saw the event when it occurred back whenever the heck it was all over Instagram, and it looked great. So I'm excited to see it. Only thing that confused me was I was under the impression that this event was, for whatever reason, I don't know if anybody ever said this, but I was under the impression that this event was their finale. So I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, so I'm excited to see the event. I'm excited to see how Kandi addresses this information because it is weird that Drew was saying it. It was weird that she said it the first time that Kandi was trying to like produce a moment, but if you recall, I didn't really too much get into it. I was just like, that's a weird thing to say, but whatever. But now she's really driving it home, so now it's getting weird, and that's why I'm saying I can see the parallel that people are drawing to the Phaedra and Portia of it all. She did reference the dungeon. Like, even when Drew specifically said the dungeon, she said something about, like, I'm scared Kandi's gonna lock me away in the dungeon. I'm just like, that made me start to feel like, okay, I think she knows what she's doing here. And I don't like that. So, yeah. Finally, we get to the key part of the episode, which is Kandi's event. And again, it's just super cute. It's a great idea. I wonder who came up with it. Not that that has anything to do with the episode, but I think it was a great idea. It was also fun to get that little call back to 12 years ago when she filmed with Sheree at the store and they were talking about it. She was talking about her first product because I remember watching that episode. And it was just fun to see Sheree bring that up and just kind of like the nostalgia of it all. And I think that's what I really liked about this episode because it had the nostalgia in it at different levels. Like, we got the bedroom Kandi anniversary. We got to see Cynthia. We saw LATOYA. So it was just things like that that I thought were fun. It was also fun to see T.S. Madison love her. It was weird to me, like, I mean, again, I wasn't expecting Cynthia to talk too much about stuff, so I had forgotten about the girls' trip of it all between her and Kenya. So it was interesting to hear them talk about that, but I thought it was nice to hear. But even when Cynthia walked into the room, like, again, her energy just made me excited. Like, that was such a key part of the episode for me. And I'm just like, this is what we're missing. Like, I just don't feel like, while I love a lot of the ladies on that cast, and some of my faves are on that cast, like, I just don't feel always like, like when I'm watching, like when they enter a room. Like when Cynthia came in, it just felt like home. And I'm just like, I love this. It was fun seeing her talk to Kenya because, again, I think that's a genuine friendship. And I watched the kind of like downfall of the friendship or the relationship when they went on the girls' trip. So it was just fun to get that backstory, and it was enough for me because, again, I wasn't expecting it. I liked seeing Kenya's confessional where she was just like, because then you get to see the difference between what's a real relationship and what's not. Like, she doesn't really tap in with the group, neither does Kandi, but you see them interact with Cynthia in this one episode, and you get to really see them like be involved in a real conversation with a real friend. And even Kenya's in her confessional saying like, I didn't know that Cynthia was going through stuff, but now that I know, like, I'll never not be there for her. That's the moments that we want. So that part just felt really good. I will say, so to the mess, like, at first I was a little taken aback by the fact that LATOYA was gonna be at the event, knowing, like, I hadn't thought about it before. Like, I was excited to see her because I'm like a nostalgia girl. Like, I love a Poppy and I love like a Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. But I hadn't thought about the mess of it all or the potential mess of it all. And so, but I have great faith in my girl Kandi that she's not a messy girl. So I was waiting to watch Speak On It to get the details around, like, how did LATOYA get invited? What was it giving? And she did say she invited her, but on her Speak On It, she clarified. It started a little fuzzy because she was like, well, I did invite her, like, last minute, kind of like the day before. And I'm like, Kandi, were you trying to be messy? But then she clarified, and she's like, actually, like, what happened was basically LATOYA and Drew has talked because they had been talking about what happened in Portugal, and I guess Drew mentioned that the party was coming up, and so Drew kind of invited her, and then it gave like LATOYA contacted Kandi like, well, girl, why is it that you didn't invite me, but Drew was telling me about it? So then subsequently, Kandi ended up inviting her. So that was the tea on that because I know y'all like to villainize Kandi, so I had to come on here and let y'all know that occurred, and I'm glad that that was cleared up. But LATOYA comes. I'm excited to see her. Less excited than I was when I watched the preview because I know that there's mess to come. And I just don't know where LATOYA is standing. And it started to feel like whatever, I'm not good with season numbers, but whatever that season where LATOYA was on, like, enjoyed her for sure, but it just feels like chaos. So it just started to feel like. And then Drew comes in. It felt even more like. But then we get the nostalgic Roa of it all, where Cynthia's like, oh girl, we was just talking about you. Like, you know, that's the old Roa. Like, girl, we was just talking about you. Tap in, clock in, like it's time for us to get started. So that was fun. We get a cute little shade about Drew's dress versus Kenya's dress. I'm not going to tap into that because I'm not trying to read Drew. I like Drew. And, you know, that starts, and we get a little snippet of LATOYA telling Kandi that she's upset with her. Kandi clarified, that's kind of how the tea came out. Kandi clarified on Speak On It that she was saying she was upset with her about the invite thing, but then also, obviously, they talked about the Portugal thing, so that kind of got chopped and screwed. And before we get to that, we get a scene of Marlo talking with Ralph. That didn't fully register for me until I sat back a little. And I'm hearing them talk, and it was a good conversation, and it felt like a familiar conversation, an amicable one, and a grown-up one. And they're even kind of expressing, like, Ralph's like, well, you're my girl, and she's like, you're my Aquarius brother. And that just made me think, like, well, why was there so much outrage with him texting you in Portugal? Not that she made it a big deal, but Marlo typically doesn't make things a big deal. She kind of drops these things, and then y'all Marlo fans on the internet go crazy, like, oh my God, this is why Marlo's right. So I'm just like, why is it a big deal that he texted her if they're supposed to be bro and sis, and they're just all good Aquarius family and stuff like that? So that was interesting. They make up. She takes accountability for talking about Ralph because she likes Ralph, so cool. And she proceeds to shade Drew, which Ralph let happen. That didn't really like raise any hairs on my back or anything because Ralph clearly doesn't like Drew. So, I mean, but I can understand why you guys are like, why would he let somebody shade his wife in front of her? Why wouldn't he? He's Ralph. So, you know, that happens. So finally we get to the part where they go upstairs. It's LATOYA and Kandi. And, you know, Candy's just kind of like, well, girl, you know, all parties involved need to be here. Drew shows up, obviously. And then she's like, well, Marlo's the one that took the video. So, you know, we can get all parties involved. Because at the end of the day, LATOYA's issue is that she was being discussed and she wasn't there to defend herself. So fine, makes sense. I understand. Marlo comes up. And I did think it was interesting when Don Juan went to get her, she was trying to bring Sonya and Sheree with her. But y'all ain't gonna talk about that. But, you know, so she goes up there. Immediately, she just is trying to have a good time. She doesn't know what's going on, I guess. And they start getting into it, and they're just like, you know, so why did you take the video? And she repeats. And she does give some further clarification and did fill in some holes. And she's just like, girl, there was more to it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you were really reading LATOYA down and talk about how she lies and stuff like that. But then you're trying to, like, play nice with her and stuff like that. So I sent her the video because you were talking trash about her. So that made sense to me. And it's still messy, but it made sense at the end of the day. Like, things can be messy and make sense. Both things can be true. So I understood where Marlo was coming from on that. And Drew immediately is like, well, no, girl, you edited those videos. But that made absolutely no sense. There was no context to that. I don't know where Drew pulled that from. And at that point, not even at that point, Drew had been started to lose me, but I didn't want to acknowledge it because I keep telling y'all I like Drew. But at that point, I had to acknowledge that Drew was losing me because it's like, girl, what are you talking about? So I like that, you know, Marlo felt herself getting kind of turned up by that and she removed herself from the situation immediately. I loved that. Even though she ran off screaming, that's no problem. That's no problem. But I like that she removed herself from that situation. Not like the other, beginning of the season where she kept ending up outside windows and stuff and just kind of like standing there upset after an altercation that she started. This was different. Somebody was kind of starting with her, in my opinion, and she removed herself from the situation. So I liked that. I feel like Marlo did well in this episode for me. Then it ends up just being Drew, LaToya, and Kandi. Again, I can understand the argument that nothing got resolved here, but I didn't have any expectations at the end of the day, because once I pieced it all together, it feels as though Drew and LaToya ended up being in some type of agreement or cahoots, and whatever, they were on the same page. And Drew ultimately is kind of the one that told LaToya to come to the event. So it's not like it was going to, things were going to weigh the way that they were going to weigh. And it was going to be LaToya and Drew versus Kandi in some capacity. But LaToya never, what I will say is LaToya never gave any leeway as to whether the kiss happened or not in person. She just was more so like, why are you discussing me while I'm not there? And then she has this weird discussion with Drew, like, well, do you trust Kandi or not? It just wasn't going anywhere. The editing got really choppy at that point. I'm sure there was a ton of back and forth where Drew was still saying it didn't happen. But ultimately, what we see at the end is where Candy's like, girl, let's just agree to disagree. It is what it is. To me, that was a resolution. At that point, I feel like Marlo had walked into some BS that Drew created with LaToya's chaos, and she was like, I'm not dealing with this, and she left. And Kandi did the same thing. She's like, girl, this is chaos. Y'all are kikiing, sitting on each other's laps. Y'all are good Judies now. Drew has made this post on social media talking about her and LaToya made up. Marlo is commenting, cracking up. Marlo has apparently unfollowed LaToya. LaToya's posting about it on her story. So it's just like, I like that the girls are not dealing with the BS on the other side of things. So that was a resolution to me. It worked for me. I also thought that it was funny, like, once Marlo removed herself from it, she went back downstairs and she was still trolling. I lived for it. She was like, I just texted Drew. Did she kiss her?
Marlo, did you ask them up there who
I just hit Drew. Did you kiss her?
Now she about to come down here with the
I'm scared.
Like, girl, like, let's keep it going, because it's just like, let's get to the point. Like, it's just so much BS. But at the end of the day, like, who cares, right? Like, I know, again, Candy's getting a lot of flack, but at the end of the day, Candy's just fighting not to be called a liar. Drew is the one fighting to say that she didn't kiss her. So the reason that we're talking about kiss or not is because of Drew. Candy's just like, girl, don't call me a liar, and she's been very clear about that. Drew is the one that's having us still go back and forth, or having y'all go back and forth, because I don't care at the end of the day.
Let's move on.
And I just think, like, I don't know, like, what, it's just weird, like, again, the editing, like, for whatever reason, we're getting these Kandi and Kenya edits out of the blue, and they showed the after show, I guess, from that season, where Kandi, and, again, listen, I hate to tell y'all to listen, but we just did this, so another Sesame Street lesson. If you listen to what Kandi said in that clip, which was supposed to villainize her, I guess, she said, if I missaw or misinterpreted what I saw, then I apologize, then I'm wrong. If there's a stipulation there, right? Cause and effect. And so, obviously, people on the internet ran with it, and they're like, well, Kandi said she was wrong, and I don't blame y'all, because editing played it 13 times, the part where she said, I'm wrong, but she said, if I misinterpreted it. And if all you have to do is listen to the conversation that they were having. It became a back and forth similar to this episode. And she's just like, girl, you can have it. It is what it is. If you say y'all didn't kiss, then fine. That's what the conversation was. She wasn't admitting defeat or saying that she lied. So I don't know if production's doing that to be messy, or if their brains operate the same way as some other people on the internet do when they mischaracterize information. But I wish that we would listen, because at the end of the day, it is a TV show, and we do have dialogue, and we are referencing these clues for a reason in these clips. So if the clip says, if I was wrong, then I apologize, I don't understand why I interpret that as, oh, she admitted that she was lying on Drew. But I don't want to get upset about that, because I know I was very upset in my video. I did 2 videos last week where I was very upset. I don't want to be upset today. I want to have a good time. I enjoyed the episode. And, I'm not happy with the way that production tried to flip it on Kandi, but whatever. And I'm not happy with Drew saying that Kandi is forcing this as like a produced moment to promote the movie. It just doesn't make any sense. But I enjoyed the episode, and I'm not going to let that take me down. It's not going to break my soul. So, that was that. I'm excited to see. I think we're going to see more of Cynthia. So I'm excited to see more of Cynthia. Again, I hope she comes back in some type of official capacity. I believe that this is the end of the Drew and the Kandi of it all. But where I'm landing on it is that I won't even say that Drew is lying, but where I'm landing on it is that Drew is being weird about it at the end of the day. And LATOYA did nothing but come in and create chaos at the end of the day. That's where I've landed. But I hope that everybody else, wherever you guys landed, I hope that we all feel resolved and we can move on, and let's see what's next. Well, I guess what's next is the Drew and the Ty storyline. Whatever. I'll see y'all next week.